last week the Bonsai models released, so at least a 27 billion model. And I thought I'll talk about it. I tried it out, gave it a bit of a comparison. Firstly, what was released? So the Bonsai models are a series of 1 and 2-bit models. They're two different models, to be clear. And the 1-bit models is what I'm looking at, which are the ternary models. So they have the weights at like -1, 0, and 1. And the cool thing about these models compared with the other approaches that are 1-bit models, because 1-bit models are not particularly new, is typically 1-bit models recover like 70% of the performance. Whereas the Bonsai models, they claim to recover 90% of the performance of the models, and also address some of the issues with the 1-bit models, which are typically like it typically just repeats itself and has some other issues that cause degradation. So firstly, I would say that, yeah, it generally lives up to that promise. Now, this release of the models doesn't do agentic tool calling as well as it should, and that's something that apparently will be addressed in the future, and we'll keep our eyes on that. But firstly, like some raw benchmarks, and you will notice if I was to compare the normal Qwen to 27 billion model that I can run on my laptop, this is at a quantization, I think at of 4 bits versus the 1-bit, yeah, there's a performance improvement and it uses less memory, which is great. But I think that the performance uplift, I hoped personally that I would see a lot more, and I think that they can probably do a lot more since they're just doing like -1, 0, and 1. There's probably optimizations that they should be able to do on software level. But yeah, it's cool to see that there's this kind of increase, at least on my hardware. But from my perspective, even though now they claim you can run it on mobile phones and they've demonstrated that, I think that it's still not quite usable. And I'll show you what it looks like on my Pi harness later on. The other release that was not last week, it was earlier, was the image models. And I think the image models were also very interesting from my perspective in terms of the speed for how quickly you could generate models on my hardware again. It was probably comparable to a Z image. It's not amazing, but it's interesting, and there was a small improvement. The differentiator for me was the ability to do image editing. That you could do that on these models, and that brings up like an opportunity. So just to show you what it looks like, I'm going to use the dog bench image, and we're going to mask out the dog and ask it to replace it with a cat. And this is what it looks like. So right hand side is the Flux Klein like 9 billion model versus the 4 billion model from Bonsai. And you can see that there's definitely quality differences here. But nevertheless, it is still cool to see that you can do it. And I think the right hand side took roughly 2 times as long as the left hand side. But so I would still probably be using, since I have the hardware to do it, on the right hand side. But if you're in a pinch and maybe you're just doing some light editing, it is pretty cool to see it work on the left-hand side. Now, granted, on my hardware at least, it's still far too slow. This still took like roughly a minute, but a difference between 1 minute to 2 minutes is quite a big difference. But if you were on some other hardware and it was a difference between like 5 seconds to 10 seconds, it's probably negligible. Nevertheless, it's still cool to see like it run on like lower memory, and the fact that it even works is pretty amazing. So that's what I think is very interesting. It's definitely pushing in the right direction in terms of having these models run on lower end devices, but I don't think, at least for me, it's not quite there yet in terms of replacing my regular driver for what I use. I think if the Bonsai 27 billion model was an order of magnitude quicker, I would probably use it. With the lower memory, you can have larger context windows and do a lot more with it. So let's have a quick look at what this would look like. I'm going to open up my terminal, and firstly I'm going to show you what my config looks like. So I'm using Llama Swap, and the key thing that I want to point out is this line at the bottom. You need to have this set to 99 if you're running a Bonsai model. So when I run on LLM Studio, you can't set this to be 99 or the maximum, and it caused the throughput to be halved. All right, so that's that. So I'm gonna run this. So let's just run this, and we are going to have a look. So I'm gonna run the model, and I'm going to use my Pi harness. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna make sure I'm using Bonsai model. I'm gonna tell it hello. So it's gonna load up the model, and then we'll see what happens. So yeah, again, one thing to remember is that the tool calling functionality for the Bonsai models are not quite up to where it should be. So if you use it and expect to get the same result as Qwen, like 27 billion model, there will be a gap there. So what we should see is it's probably going to load the models. You can see on the left hand side the health check pass. So it's probably going through the thinking phase, and then it'll run and generate the output. So you can see the throughput is roughly 20 tokens per second, being a bit generous. So now I am going to switch over to the this model. I'm gonna also give it the same thing, so it's gonna load again, and hopefully what you'll see is it will run, but it will be much quicker. And I think like that's still for me the difference, right? Like the throughput for the Qwen 3.6 is typically for me 40 to 60 tokens. It's probably running a bit lower because it's now loaded both models, but I can assure you that that's generally the case, is around 40 to 60 tokens. And I think that's probably the sweet spot for me. I would want to see the Bonsai models, the 27 billion models, get to that point where it's probably twice as quick, maybe even 3 times as quick as it is now. I think it's hopefully possible. And then with that, that will definitely lend itself to be my daily driver and replace my current coding harness and give me just more freedom to do stuff with the RAM that I have on my computer. Because right now on the Qwen models, it uses up a fair bit, and maybe it's nice to have like larger context size or just more space to play when you run coding agents. So that's my thoughts on the Bonsai models. Let me know what you think.